Folks, no shortage of stories of sellers losing money, but there's buyers really on the hook for thousands of dollars. I'll get into that and the latest home prices and insights for York Region for week ending January the 10th, 2024. Many of you have subscribed. Thank you for that. But many of you watch this channel every single week and you've not yet subscribed. Do me a favor. It helps our channel out quite a bit. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell button so you're reminded when these videos come up. So there's no shortage of stories of sellers losing money when they go to sell their property. Now, many of these sellers have bought in the last couple of years and values are down, so they're selling at a loss. Many of these sellers bought pre-construction a few years ago, and if they've closed, within the last year or closing now, many of them are selling at a loss. If they choose to sell, they're selling at a loss. And some of these sellers have had no choice, and we've heard many stories. I've told many on this channel of sellers losing $100,000, $200,000, $600,000. But there are buyers also that for whatever reason, they're either choosing or have no choice, but they're not even buying and they're losing money. Let me explain. There are buyers that sign an agreement of purchase and sale. And many of them that have had, for example, a long closing, things changed. Interest rates have changed in that time. Something has changed with their own household as far as work goes, and they can no longer qualify to buy. And then there's other things that have changed where the value of the property that they bought has come down. And now the property is worth, let's just say, $100,000 less than what they initially bought it for. Or, believe it or not, today in this market, there are still sometimes bidding wars on properties and buyers overpay. And the bank appraisal comes in lower than what they purchased at, and they're not qualifying for the mortgage. Or they're choosing that, hey, the value is so much lower than what we bought, why do we want to buy it? And they're deciding or having forced to not close on that property. Not closing comes with severe financial consequences. Now, I should say, I'm not giving you legal advice here, but you should really seek legal advice and then get another opinion on that if you as a buyer are choosing not to close. I've seen buyers in some situation negotiate their deposit with the seller and say, okay, I gave you a $100,000 deposit. You keep that, let me out of the deal. But don't come after me for anything else. And some sellers have been okay with that. But it was negotiated legally between lawyers. This is not a real estate agent thing. But that buyer just lost $100,000 and has no asset. At least the seller who's selling at a loss has an asset, and if they could hang on to it, they've got choices. That buyer has no asset, has nothing. It just basically says, keep my $100,000 deposit. So that buyer lost $100,000 just like that. Then there's the buyer who thinks, I just won't close. Let the seller sue me. Do you know the seller can sue you for a lot more than that $100,000 that you have in deposit? Because the seller, in turn, is going to eventually sell that house. And if it takes time to sell, there's a good chance that that $100,000 becomes $200,000, becomes $400,000, $500,000 difference between the new sale price and the price you bought it at. So that loss, that difference in price that the seller is now incurring, that's a real loss. They sold it for you at one price. Now the seller is selling it months down the road at a different price, $500,000 less. They can sue you for that. It is a very serious matter to not close on a contract. Again, I'm not giving you legal advice here, But as a buyer that's thinking of pulling out of a contract, a purchase agreement, you most definitely need to seek legal advice, because the financial burden that not closing can put you under can change the rest of your life. It's big money. It needs to be handled delicately, and it's for sure a legal matter. It is not a real estate matter. Those buyers out there that think their realtor's going to tell you what to do, unfortunately, there are realtors that'll tell you what to do. The realtor should be telling you, you need to speak with your lawyer and understand the consequences of not closing, because they are severe. I'm not trying to scare you. It's just reality getting out of a purchase agreement like that. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. If you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, it's really simple. Up here, there's a link to my calendar. In the description below, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, pick a day and time that suits you. I'll know ahead of time this way. I'll make sure I'm available, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the York Region numbers. Folks, this is our first full week of the new year, week ending January the 10th. I can tell you the city's waking up real estate-wise. The city, the country probably, but if we're talking York Region, Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham, firsthand we're seeing more showings, more activity out there. Let's see how long this lasts. Let's get into the numbers here. Here's a quick summary. Detached properties only, average sold price. This is for a bunch of cities around the GTA, Brampton, Durham, Toronto. Mississauga has beaten Toronto at average sold price. But on this episode, we're talking about York Region, in particular, Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham. Here's a snapshot of that. Markham has the highest average sold price, then Vaughan, then Richmond Hill. We're going to start off with Vaughan. Detached properties only. I've got broken down by week for a whole year here. Week ending January the 10th, 15 detached properties were sold. Big jump from the previous couple of weeks. But remember, the previous couple of weeks, we had Christmas, Boxing Day, New Year's, and then, the day before New Year's, the day after New Year's. Who's house shopping, right? But our first full week, we go from 6 detached properties to 15 detached properties. Now, 5 of those 15, 1/3 of all those sales were at properties that were sold at $2 million or more. So average sold price jumps up a bit to $1,728,000. Now this time last year, as we were heading into the spring market, prices were going up. Look, that was then. There are patterns in real estate. There are seasonality patterns, but it is a different market this year. We'll see what happens, but that's what happened last year. Prices were climbing up before they came down. Compared to last year, 1,728 is 1% lower than where the average sold price was a year ago for the same week. The median of 1,580 is 0.3%. So the average, I said, is 1%. That was rounded. It's actually 1.1% lower. Median price is 0.3% higher. It's basically the same as what it was a year ago. The dotted line, that's a moving average. Average price and median price have been trending down when it comes to detached properties in Vaughan. Of the 15 that sold, almost a third, 27% sold at list price or more. Many of these were properties where the price was reduced to create a bit of a bidding war, and that's why they sold at list price or more. Listings went from 7 listings to 32 detached properties were listed. Now, I stress that, 32. It's actually not a lot, but it's an increase from where we were the last couple of weeks. Months of inventory sitting at 3.1. Now, we did expect it to come down just because of what happens between Christmas and New Year's. But 3.1, prior to heading into the holiday season, we were sitting in the fives, high fours, mid fives, pretty much a balanced market heading into more of a buyer's market. 3.1 seems quite low from where we were prior to the holidays. Let's see, like obviously the next few weeks are going to really kind of determine the direction that we're going. Here's Richmond Hill. 4 detached properties were sold, less than what we sold week ending January the 3rd, where we had New Year's in the middle of that. So 4 were sold, half of those, 2 of them were at $2 million or more. Average sold price still came down to $1,607,000. Hard to believe, isn't it? But the trend overall has been coming down. These last few weeks, though, I would not really take those numbers as an indication of what's really happening. We've got 4 sold, 7 sold, 4 sold. But prior to the holiday season, prices were trending down for Richmond Hill. 1607 is 6% higher than where the average price was a year ago. The median price of 1454 is 8% lower than where we were this time a year ago. 4 were sold, none are selling at list price or more. Listings went from 8 listings to 20 listings for detached properties in Richmond Hill, and months of inventory shot way up to 9.2 months of inventory. Prior to going into the holiday season, we were up in the high 4s, 5s between balanced market and buyer's market. Again, we need to see the trend over the next few weeks. Right now, things have kind of picked up across the GTA in general, a little bit more active, but let's see if that continues. So here's Markham, detached properties for Markham. We went from 4 sales to 19 detached properties were sold, 5 of those at $2 million or more. Average sold price, $1,745,000. Now Markham, for a while now, since the beginning of November, has kind of shown a trend of prices increasing. Compared to last year, 1745 is 12% higher than where the average sold price was a year ago. The median price is 14% higher than where we were this time last year. Of the 19 that sold, 42% sold at list price or more. Now 42% sounds high, and actually as a percentage, it's quite high for the kind of real estate market generally that we're talking about here. 42% really is 8. 8 of those 19 sold at list price or more. Now some of them I could tell you are properties that had been on the market for a while and the sellers just need to sell and they've dropped their price to get sold quickly. And when you drop enough that now it's what is perceived to be a better deal or a good deal, buyers will buy. 19 were listed and months of inventory sitting at extremely low at 1.5 months of inventory. Prior to going into the holiday season, remember Vaughan and Richmond Hill had months of inventory in the high 4s and 5s. Well, Markham has been on the bottom end of that, has been more in the 3s, once or twice going into a little bit over 3 months of inventory, but often being below 3 months of inventory. Markham has been more competitive than any of those 3 cities when we compare Vaughan and Richmond Hill. So Markham more competitive. 1 seems extremely low. Let's see what happens over the next few weeks. Here's a quick summary. You've got your balanced market in the middle. Let's see. It's early to tell which way it's going. The general feeling is that we're more in a balanced market, but let's see how it turns out. Does it push into more of a buyer's market, or are we going to see a little bit more competition being at the lower end of the balanced market, and in some pockets, maybe even a seller's market? Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.